All right, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of The Index. Sorry, I got a lot of news to cover and only 30 minutes to cover it in. So for today's topic, it is Monday, July 25th. Again, if I can get this uploaded correctly. Over the weekend, watched Dinesh D'Souza's Hillary's America, a brand new documentary that came out in theaters, no less. Now, a little bit of history about Dinesh D'Souza. He's an Indian guy, came over here from India because he didn't like the political system over there. He wanted to come to the land of the free, home of the brave, right here in America. Came here, joined the Republican Party, became a big documentary guy, made a very large and popular documentary called Obama 2016. In it, he kept it to pretty much just a nice, logical, ideological debate why Obama's policies will lead to the destruction of America. Well, Obama didn't like it, so they went after him. Now, he was technically guilty of violating U.S. campaign finance laws under the letter of the law. Now, he gave a bunch of money to a friend of his, gave over the legal limit, but as he said, never told her that he gave his friend money in the election cycle. So it's obviously not an attempt to buy influence. This is also part of the law. You can look back previously about Dinesh D'Souza to get a little bit more information about him that no one's ever been successfully prosecuted under until him, because he happened to make a very popular anti-Obama film. So they sent him to jail. And a pretty nasty jail, too. One that actually murderers, thieves, arsonists, all the violent types of people go to. Not that nice Martha Stewart type jail, the one everyone else goes to. And so, because of that, he then realized, I think, that, hey, this isn't just an ideological debate, that it's a gentleman's game, as he put it. This is a hardcore war for the future of America. And really the future of the world, because let's face it, we're so ingrained in world politics, America is the world practically anymore. So he creates the new film, Hillary's America, goes over the history of the Democratic Party, a lot of which I was familiar with, but not quite as knowledgeable about the details as he presented in this film. It should honestly be, after watching this movie, a legal requirement before anyone's allowed to join the Democratic Party. You must watch this film. He goes over the historical racism of the two parties in America, the Republican and the Democratic Party, and actually shows that the association with racism on the Republicans is one of the biggest con games of all time. Even me as a Republican, I thought it was always old school racism and that we're trying to fight that title today. And though we have that title, we're trying to prove, hey, we are not racist. We're just very deeply concerned with the way our country is going. We want prosperity for ourselves, and the Democrats actually are the racists. Not that he demonstrated that the history actually is much worse for the Democratic Party, and a lot of what they call Republican racism is actually the result of Democrat policies and agendas dating all the way back to the 1800s. Okay. Their level of despicability made me so sick when watching this film. Now, in it, I will make note that he does sort of overly idealize the Republican narrative. Now, as one who has read history, I do know that the Republican viewpoint or vision hasn't always been the best. When he goes into particularly what led up to the Civil War, the racisms of the Democratic Party versus the Republican, he does bring up that it is the Democrats who wanted slavery. He sort of idealizes the Republicans' desire not to have slavery as they are the most moral, highly enlightened political group out there. I will make note that the Republican Party, at least during its time, did know that slavery was wrong. They wanted to get rid of it. However, the highly idealized that they wanted to free all the black men isn't technically all the way correct. A lot of Republicans wanted to deport them back to Africa. They didn't want them to integrate here into American society. But at least they were enlightened enough to know, hey, slavery was wrong. And so they did fight against it. And watching this movie, the just pure disdain that it gives you for the Democratic Party, I can understand. It's a short film, 2 hours. You can't go into depth on all the nitpickings of the Republican Party that some of us are familiar with, and you should look up some of the history of the Republican Party so you can properly balance it against your hatred of the Democrats. But the amount of pure garbage that the Democratic Party is responsible for in this country, they should all be tried as traitors and as war criminals. For Pete's sake, this party is a disgusting mess. I won't say it's a entertaining film, just because I got so furious at the Democrats while watching this film. It does keep you highly engaged, and it's not boring by any means. But it is one that, if you're not it's not one that you want to watch when you're in a good mood. It's a film you want to watch when you want to learn hard, cold facts about the Democratic Party. By the time you reach the end of the film, myself and everyone else who was in the theater, they ended up playing the national anthem at the end of it, and you saw most of the crowd just shoot right up immediately. It gets you so emotionally charged and involved that by the time our national anthem plays, it's you feel this most patriotic wave wash over you when you realize it's the duty of the ideology of America is at stake here, that the Democratic Party is trying to destroy the very foundation that America is. And you stand up at the end of that film, and you will, if you have any sense of patriotism in you, will shed a tear when the anthem plays. I'm starting to tear up actually right now, and I don't mean to be funny as I say that, but it's a film that gets you so emotionally engaged and charged, and you will want all of the Democrats brought up on war crimes. This film, now segueing into the next segment of this podcast, debuted on Friday. However, it was given its first showdown at the RNC, the Republican National Convention. A bunch of people did interviews with Dinesh D'Souza. I watched those before I actually watched the film. A pretty nice guy. It's a shame that he got screwed over as badly as he did by the current administration. But this film couldn't have been made without that anger of having been attacked and just legally had the crap beaten out of you the way he has. It shows anger at the Democrats. It shows that the emotion of realizing that this is a war against America, against goodness, against wholesomeness. And so I can't fault him for being a Republican. He does a pretty good film. Got great reviews at the Republican convention. Now, for the segue to complete, this past week, Donald Trump got the nomination at the Republican convention. Not that we should be surprised that he did. I am surprised, though, that there weren't as many shenanigans as I was expecting. Now, we had a little bit of a tussle in the Rules Committee. During roll call, there was the potential, but it never got far enough for anything to actually be done about it. And then Ted Cruz, in the most selfish, self-aggrandizing shit show I've ever seen, goes up there and essentially says, everybody vote your conscience, in air quotes, aka trying to say, hey, don't vote for Trump. So he's given ammunition to Hillary for that, and completely disgraced himself in front of everybody. Lion Ted, thank you for doing this. I mean, I hate that you did it, but at the very least, you've shot yourself in your own foot now, hard enough that I think you will have definitively destroyed your career in politics, which will be the better for most of us without you being involved in it. At least when 2016 comes up, everybody will still have that hatred of you and hopefully still keep that moniker Lion Ted going. They'll be sure never to allow you to become even a nominee, let alone president, next cycle. So thank you for doing that, Ted. Well, going into the next segue, since we had the Republican National Convention, which is finished, we now have the DNC, the Democratic National Convention, coming up today, Monday. Now, I'm recording this actually on Sunday. This isn't a live broadcast. It's being recorded Sunday so that hopefully, because my crappy internet in this place of America that I live, because we have no desire to invest in our infrastructure at all, will be able to be uploaded in time for the DNC on Monday. Now, RNC. What happened to the protests out that were supposed to be planned? All the Bernie supporters were all up in arms, and they were going to protest and riot and destroy the whole city type thing. What happened? The two most violent encounters I can think of that during this entire event, 24 arrests for the RNC. That's nothing for a political event. And nothing of them were actually felonies. They're just misdemeanors. Stupid crap like lighting yourself on fire while trying to burn the U.S. flag. If that's not the galaxy getting its revenge on you for doing something stupid, I don't know what is. Don't even charge the guy with a misdemeanor. Just let him pay his Obamacare premium for setting his own ass on fire. We had some flagpole climbing, and then a really bizarre event where the KKK, which did show up unfortunately, and some commies, or excuse me, it was Black Lives Matter, I believe, decided to get into a pissing war at the RNC. Now, usually when you say words like pissing war, you're speaking figuratively. You're talking about that it's not really constructed debate, that they're just yelling at each other for yelling's sake so that their voices can be heard. No, this time they actually did have a piss war. They actually filled up super soakers with piss and decided to shoot it at each other. I'm like, what? How is that a protest? Why should anybody fear either of these two groups when they humiliate themselves and devolve to even be lower than a 4th grade level, that actually use piss on each other and get into a fight that way? While funny, that's really as violent as it got. And I want to say the whole reason why it was pretty much non-violent compared to what everybody was expecting: open carry state and bikers for Trump. Fact is, you could walk around at the RNC. I don't believe you could walk into it. Secret Service was very clear that you can't walk into the RNC armed, but you can walk all around the place armed. They had people open carrying all over the place. And guess what? A armed society is a peaceful society. Or excuse me, the armed society is a polite society. And even though there were a lot of tempers, it was hot, there were people doing stupid crap, ultimately, because plenty of people were armed outside, you didn't have anybody do anything totally stupid. Now, the DNC, however, in Pittsburgh, we have an interesting conundrum. They are not an open carry city. They are not an open carry state either. Democrats are also very anti-gun, so none of their members will be armed. So it's essentially turned into a gun-free zone, which, if any of you are familiar with that term, know that that's the first recipe for a disaster to occur. WikiLeaks also released a bunch of emails from the DNC showing collusion between them and Hillary for this really weird neo-feminist Nazi propaganda mission to get her elected. Really stupid, and how they really screwed over Bernie Sanders. So the Bernie supporters, who do have a very long history of violence, who have short tempers and are likely to do something stupid, have reason to be mad at the DNC. There are no open carry at the DNC, so everyone is gun-free. So the Bernie supporters have free range to do stupid shit, and it will be, they're calling for over 100 degrees. Okay? That is a recipe for shit to go down. By the end of the week, they will either have to call in the National Guard because there's going to be so much rioting, or the city will be burned to the ground. Okay? Is what I'm calling for. I was surprised more didn't happen at the RNC, but was expecting it. The DNC, however, it's no holds barred. They can go completely as shit show as they want to go. And I don't want to see it because a lot of people innocent people will be hurt when the Bernie crazies start doing stupid shit, and when they make sure that the whole DNC feels the burn, a lot of innocent people are going to get hurt, but it will show you just how depraved the Democratic Party is when the RNC gets off with almost no violence and the DNC comes down to them having to declare martial law. It'll be interesting. We'll see the rest of this week how it goes. Now, one of the reasons why this video was so late instead of me trying to do another video last week was trying to get the figures for going back to the beginning of this conversation on movies, and speaking of the DNC's ultra-feminist agenda, Ghostbusters 2016. The numbers are effectively in. Now, you listen to the mainstream media critics. This movie is the best film ever made. There's no need to ever make another action film ever again. No reason to make another comedy ever again. We shall all bow down and worship Melissa McCarthy as our god. Paula Jones shall be the new Messiah. And this film will be the basis for a new religion, and the world will be awesome under the Ghostbusterism. However, you listen to the reviews of everybody who's not mainstream media, the film is mediocre to just pure shit. Okay? Mediocre at best and shit is the general opinion. I've not been able to find anyone who doesn't have a direct tie to either mainstream media or a really radicalist feminist agenda that particularly likes the movie. Some of them go into just deep ripping this movie apart, and it shows how bad this movie is, despite the mainstream media critic score of this film, because $50 million opening weekend in the United States. Though they hit the target, as Forbes put it, that's kind of a low opening number, especially for a movie that they think that after making it and all the marketing is probably close to $500 million worth of expenses that they got to cover. So, bad, mediocre opening weekend at best. This weekend, viewership has dropped 63%. Okay? As an example, Batman vs. Superman, which didn't have any of the opening flack that Ghostbusters did, and did have, I believe, a much higher opening weekend, dropped 50% the following weekend. Again, Ghostbusters, 63%, according to the article I read, drop in revenue, which means drop in viewership. This film has proven to be a worthless piece of shit that it is. It was driven by Amy Pascal at Sony, and really just an ultra-feminine neo-Nazi agenda, or neo-feminazi agenda, excuse me, and wasn't at any point really a credit to fans. And it shows that people are waking up and not going to take the media industry shitting on what they want, that they want good, wholesome, good films, not politically driven pieces of shit. And thankfully, I was scared the first weekend at $50 million. I was hoping for a little bit more crushing of a blow, but you still had probably all those people who were going to see it anyway just to form their own opinion. Thankfully, word of mouth has gone around and shown that the movie is worthless. It'll crash and burn, and I believe Sony is committed to a sequel. I mean, with these numbers, no one in their right mind would put out a sequel, but because they're so engaged at the hip with this Amy Pascal agenda that they don't have any choice, really. It's really sad that Ghostbusters is going to be raked through the mud the way it is and has to be put on the sacrificial altar for why the new neo-feminazi agenda is evil. Because I like Ghostbusters. I'd like to see it again, but I'm sorry, Ghostbusters, Harold Ramis, they turned this film into something it should never have been, and we need to punish Sony for creating this piece of garbage instead of listening to us, the fans, and giving us the movie we wanted to see. Thankfully, I think that they are going to realize that a little bit too late. Now, it'll be interesting, and I have no opinion on this part right now. I just want to see where this will go, because for those who don't know how Sony's built this, there's multiple parts to Sony. Remember, Sony is a Japanese company. They expanded a lot, bought out a lot of companies, absorbed some others, bought out MGM, which is how they got the movie arm in America, but they are kind of technically separate entities. it'll be interesting to see how Sony proper, which is mostly the manufacturing, digital manufacturing end, versus the U.S. Entertainment arm, handle this situation. There's been some friction in the past, but that was exposed from the email hack back in during that interview mess, and it'll be interesting to see how Sony proper in Japan will try to go after Sony Entertainment in America for such a very poor use of company funds, for such an abysmal project and show, and for attaching themselves to really a political agenda instead of what Japan wants, which is a money-making agenda. So it'll be interesting. Again, I have no opinion on what it will be. I just want to see it, because I don't know enough about Japanese culture to make an educated opinion on what they'll do to Sony America. It'll just be interesting to watch. Well, those are the topics I wanted to cover for today. Hopefully I'll start to get this into a more standardized show format, and I actually just remembered right now. One other thing that happened at the RNC that was pretty funny was Young Turks, or as Roger Stone calls them, the Young Turds versus Alex Jones incident. Before I go, please watch the video. It's extremely entertaining. Granted, Alex can be somewhat of an a-hole at times. However, the Young Turks' response to Alex was completely out of proportion, really abysmal, and just really, again, highlights the whole right versus left debate. Remember, we're called the right because we are. Thank you. Again, thank you for watching. I won't say enjoy this week, because this week is probably going to go downhill pretty quickly, but keep an eye out for what's going on. Try to stay safe. Have a good weekend. Or excuse me, this is the weekend. Have a good week. See you all next time.